What camera gear can we expect to see in the first quarter? Are you looking for a refresh of the Panasonic S series? An S1, S1R, or even an S1H Mark II? And what about a new Canon camera or lens? Perhaps the 200 to 500 millimeter, or a new Nikon or Sony camera and lens? Well, we'll answer these questions, but first, I have a rather simple and humble request. Please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps this channel grow, and it keeps you informed on the latest camera gear. Sony scheduled a press conference for January the 6th at 8 p.m. to talk about their latest products at CES. And this presentation isn't going to be a Sony Alpha presentation. It's going to be a corporate presentation covering all the consumer electronics. Camera announcements? Well, they usually get their own separate announcements in the weeks or months following. So, what can we expect to have Sony announce in the first quarter if we're getting nothing announced at CES 2025? Well, Andrea Pizzini of Sony Alpha Rumors says that Sony is going to make an announcement this winter, and it's going to be of the 400mm GM2, and it's going to be in advance of the 2025 NFL season and the 2026 Winter Olympics. Well, as far as camera bodies goes, there's been talk about Q1 delivering the Sony a7S III successor, the Sony a7 IV successor, and there's even been a little bit of talk about the a7 R5 successor. But most of this is wild rumors and speculation. We don't have any validation, at least not yet. Rumored specs are all over the place. However, to give us an idea of what we can expect to see in the a7 IV, take a look at the Nikon Z6 Mark III. It will give you an idea of what we can expect the a7 IV to match on the high end, as it's the most recent model in this competitive tier. And then take a look at the Canon EOS R6 Mark II as a baseline of what we could expect to see, because it's the second oldest in this tier. This isn't rocket surgery. The a7 IV is going to, at the very least, match what its peers can do. And the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, using that as a baseline, well, Canon is supposed to refresh that camera here in 2025, and we'll talk about when in the Canon segment coming up. So if you're looking at getting an idea of what the Sony a7 IV is going to deliver, I wouldn't pay attention to the latest supposed leaked specifications. Just take a look at the Nikon Z6 Mark III, and it will give you a good idea of what you can expect to see in the a7 V. And as far as the a7S III goes, well, we don't have a lot. And this is rather interesting, because when the a7S III came out, it was thought to be competing against the Canon EOS R5. But each camera is very different in its target group. So could Sony decide to open things up and give the a7S IV higher resolution 8K video? It's possible, but keep in mind that the S in the a7S III stands for sensitivity. It's all about delivering low light performance. So I think for a lot of the customers buying into this camera, they believe that the extra level of detail that you get with 8K over sample 4K isn't as important. It's better to have a low resolution sensor. So we'll see if Sony stays in that line. And as far as the high resolution Sony a7R6, well, I wouldn't expect that one to be updated until, if it is going to happen in 2025, it's going to happen towards the second half, late in the second half, and certainly not in the first quarter. Like Sony, Panasonic has a scheduled corporate presentation. It's on January the 7th at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Panasonic will spend most of their CES announcement talking about their broad product range, leaving little time to talk about whatever camera plans they have. However, they are likely to tease something at the end of the presentation, as they've done in the past. Now, as far as any refresh of a Micro Four Thirds camera or a new Micro Four Thirds camera, don't expect anything in 2025. There is a slim chance, but if you're looking for an update there, you're probably going to have to wait until 2026. Where most people are looking forward to a refresh is in the S series. With 3 cameras registered, we expect Panasonic to refresh the S series, specifically the S1, the S1R, and the S1H. And as Canon has done with the R5 and Nikon with the Z8, there's really no need to have an S1 and an S1R. Based on the capabilities of those two cameras, Panasonic can easily merge them together. Now, as far as the S1H Mark II, yeah, that gives Panasonic the opportunity to take all the video capabilities that they want to produce, along with that new phase detect autofocus system, package it up into their flagship model, and really wow the competition as well as their own customer base. And I think that's a good thing. But 6.5 years, if we get an announcement in Q1, it'll be 6.5 years since that first announcement of the S1 and the S1R. Now, while I don't know for sure if we're getting the announcement in Q1, if Panasonic doesn't deliver an announcement, at least in the first half, well, I think they're going to continue to bleed customers. This is do or die for Panasonic. They don't have to deliver a mind-blowing camera. They have to deliver a camera that keeps up with the competition. And depending on where they price it, they're either competing against the Canon R6 Mark III, the Nikon Z6 Mark III, as well as the Sony A7 IV, A7 V, whichever one is out on the market at that point. Or, as I think they should do, they would be competing against the Nikon Z8 and the Canon EOS R5 and the R5 Mark II. 6.5 years is an awful long time. It's too long. I really do hope that Panasonic makes an announcement here in Q1. It's definitely overdue. And at this point, you don't have to be an expert analyst looking at the camera market to see that. And if you're a Panasonic customer, I know you've been waiting a long time and very patiently. Others have left for Nikon, Sony, or Canon. I like Panasonic. I always have. Since the GH5 came out, it intrigued me. And then the S1 and the S1R, I really considered those cameras. The only thing holding me back was the lack of a reliable autofocus system. And for those of you willing to chime in and say, nonsense, for my scenarios, I'm a single person, single crew, run and gun. And if you're multiple people, then yes, you can work with that manual autofocus system. But if you're a single person and doing run and gun, it is very challenging to work with an autofocus system that isn't reliable. But now let's turn our attention to Nikon. The Nikon Z9, their flagship mirrorless camera, was announced on October the 28th, 2021. Their flagship cameras are normally announced every 4 years, usually to tie in with the Olympics. And based on what we're hearing from our sources, well, it's definitely out there in the wild. It's being tested. It's being, well, how should we say, put in the hands of ambassadors. Now, we don't know how far along it is, but as far as a Q1 announcement, yeah, I'm not seeing it. I would expect, well, a second half announcement of the Nikon Z9 too, and then of course the Nikon Z8 in the following year. I'm really excited by what Nikon's working on, and I think it's more likely that we'll see more lenses in Q1 instead of camera bodies. After all, we've got the Nikon Z6 Mark III, a lot of the other lower entry cameras have been addressed. We're waiting for that Nikon Z9 before we can have a Nikon Z8 announcement. But now it's time to turn our attention to Canon. We've been hearing about the Canon RF 200 to 500mm f4 going all the way back to 2019. But all signs are now pointing to an announcement this quarter. Some had indicated that the lens could be an f5.6 or even an f5 to 6.3. But we now have several reliable sources telling us that the lens is indeed going to be an f4 throughout the entire focal range. And while the Canon EOS R6 Mark III was due to be announced here in the first quarter of 2025, we're now hearing that it's going to happen sometime in the second quarter. There's been some thought that we would see the camera announced ahead of CP Plus in late February from the 27th to March the 2nd. But we're now being told not to expect the announcement until March at the earliest. But the good news is Canon is expected to announce 5 new lenses here in 2025, with several patent applications teasing us on several internal telephoto lenses, with this US patent application providing us a lot of insight. And as Sigma has received a lot of positive reception for their APS-C lenses for the RF mount, all eyes are on CP Plus for a possible announcement of more lenses, particularly full-frame lenses, such as the 150 to 600 millimeter, several primes, and the 70 to 200 millimeter. CP Plus is indeed the next possible likely date of an announcement for additional lenses, as the 5 Sigma lenses announced in 2024 will all have shipped by the end of this month. "2024 was supposed to be a stellar year for Sony, Canon, Nikon, and Panasonic, but much of those cameras and lenses promised for 2024 will have now been pushed into 2025 due largely to parts shortages. And what caused those parts shortages, material shortages, or delays in products of lenses and cameras that happened in 2024? Well, I hate to tell you, nothing's been solved, so I would expect to see a slow rollout of cameras and lenses throughout 2025, starting with Q1, going into Q2, being a little bit quiet for summer, and then picking back up in September, October, and November. It is sad, but this is just the nature of things. And, you know, as always, if you're interested in something and there's an announcement coming up, you want to pay very careful attention, because if you want something, you're better off pre-ordering it, because what we've seen is, at least with, well, this, not the camera, but this lens here, people have to wait 8 to 10 months. And those were some of the people that pre-ordered on the day it was announced. We're seeing delays across the board. It's not just Canon, it's Sony, Nikon, and others. Now, what Canon tends to do is they'll go ahead with an aggressive announcement schedule, and then we'll see months and months and months of delays until products ship. Sony and Nikon and Panasonic, on the other hand, are, well, doing things a little bit differently. They keep delaying when to release the cameras and lenses so they have enough inventory for their customers. Delays are inevitable, and we're going to continue to see them here in 2025. So subscribe if you want to stay up to date on the latest, and I'll keep you informed. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the sales that have been going on, because leading up until Christmas, for many months, we saw some incredible sales, deep discounts from Canon, Sony, and Nikon. And while many Canon and Nikon cameras are still on sale, the sales aren't as impressive as they were a week ago, with the exception of the R5, which is still $1,500 less than the Mark II. But B&H is no longer giving away a free battery grip. And if you are interested in picking up on any of the deals, I've got about 20 of them in the comment section down below, or in the description down below. I've updated them, I've updated the pricing and the discounts, and I've removed cameras that are no longer on sale. If you are interested in any of those and you're looking at purchasing from Adorama, B&H, and Amazon.com, then please do me a favor. Consider using my affiliate links down below, because I'll be honest with you, they're literally what keeps this channel on the air. They literally keep the lights on, and thank you. A big thanks to you and for supporting me. It's very much appreciated. Now, I know not all of you watching are in the United States or can use these links, and I understand that. Reach out to your local camera store and show some love there. But a big thanks to everybody over the holidays that have used my links. It's very much appreciated. Thank you for tuning in, for watching, for commenting, for subscribing, and giving me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's very much appreciated. I'm probably about a couple of months away from that 60,000 threshold for subscribers, and it's kind of nice to see. Who knows, maybe within 4 years I'll get to that 100,000 mark. And if you'd like to see me get there sooner and you think I deserve to be a little higher, tell your friends about me, ask them to subscribe. But that's it for now. Have yourself a safe and happy and prosperous new year. And that's it for now, but we'll see you again soon. Cheers. Thanks for watching.